Of the kings of the Mark between Eorl and Theoden, most is said of Helm Hammerhand. He was a grim man of great strength, the king of Rohan in times of great sorrow and suffering. Welcome everyone to another Fellowship of Fans video. If you would like to stay up to date with everything the Lord of the Rings related, and to learn more about Rohan in this series of videos we are doing, consider subscribing and supporting the channel. By the time the War of the Ring came about, Middle-earth was already shaped by countless heroes. Among them was Helm Hammerhand, the mighty king of Rohan, whose story lives on in the upcoming film The War of the Rohirrim. But who was Helm, and why is his story so important to Rohan's legacy? Helm was born in the year 2691 of the Third Age, about 330 years before the War of the Ring. His reign as the 9th king of Rohan came during the turbulent time when Rohan faced threats from within and beyond its borders. He had inherited a big land, but one of unstable footing, with tensions lasting in generations that came before him. For it was his, before Helm, King Daor, his grandfather, had been already fighting against the Dunlendings throughout his reign. During that period, they had taken Isengard, and after establishing their settlements in the valleys towards the west, they had become a big threat to Rohan's northern and western borders. Even though he'd fought them with great success, Daor didn't have enough strength to besiege Isengard, and so Rohan had to keep a strong force in the Westfold in order to keep the Dunlending raiders at bay. Daor's son and Helm's father, King Gram, spent his reign continuing with his father's wartime doctrine fighting, but there was no larger gains by either side during this time. Helm's reign was marred by a bitter feud with Freka, a powerful lord of Rohan who claimed descent from King Freywein, but it is said that he had a lot of Dunlending blood in him as well. Freka sought to claim the throne of Rohan for his family by marrying his son Wulf to Helm's daughter. During one of the council meetings, when Freka demanded Helm's daughter hand in marriage and was denied, he insulted the king. Old kings that refuse a proffered staff may fall on their knees. After the council meeting, Helm went outside alone with Freka. "Now, Dunlending," said the king, "you only have Helm to deal with, alone and unarmed, but you have said much already, and it is my turn to speak. Freka, your folly has grown with your belly. You talk of a staff. If Helm dislikes a crooked staff that is thrust on him, he breaks it so." And with that, he smote Freka such a blow with his fist that he fell back stunned, and died soon after. Helm then proclaimed Freka's son and near kin to the king's enemies, and they fled. For at once, Helm sent many men riding to the west marches. Since Helm is known as Helm Hammerhand, it is a common discussion amongst the fans whether he is already known by this name before smiting Freka, or did this event earn him the name Hammerhand. But the circumstances seem to point towards this incident with Freka being its source. Either way, 4 years later, war came, and the Rohirrim were on their own, for Gondor was also assailed along its coast by 3 separate fleets of Umbar and Harad. The Dunlendings, led by Wulf, saw their chance, came over the River Isen with great force, as they had joined forces with the enemies of Gondor that landed further west around the mouth of the rivers Lefnuin and Isen. Helm met them with a Rohirrim army at the fords of Isen, but he was defeated and pushed back, and Wulf and his forces entered Rohan and started pillaging. After suffering this great defeat, Helm and his people retreated to the fortress that the Rohirrim called Soothburg, a mighty fortress that was built by Gondor in the days of its greatest might. His son Halef fell defending the doors of the Golden Hall of Medusel in Edoras, and Wulf took over Rohan's capital and called himself king. The long winter began, and Rohan was covered with snow for 5 months. The hunger was everywhere across the land, and the Rohirrim and their enemies both suffered a lot. After many weeks of hardship, Helm's son Hammer led a group of men for a sortie and foray, but they were lost in the snow. Helm grew even more grim, almost mad with grief and hunger, and he would leave the safety of the fortress at night, clad in white, walking through the blizzard alone to attack and kill enemy soldiers with his bare hands. Before going out, he would let out his great and mighty horn, which echoed menacingly in the deep, and the besiegers were so frightened that they would flee instead of attacking him. However, one night his horn sounded in the deep for the last time, and Helm never returned. Instead, when the morning came and the sun finally shone after many days, he was seen outside the fortress, still standing with his knees unbent, very tall and frozen, but alone, for the Dunlendings were too afraid to approach him. However, later it was said that his horn was still heard at times in the deep, and the wrath of Helm would walk amongst the foes of Rohan and kill men with fear. As the winter started to pass after many months of freezing cold, the Rohirrim would manage to partially recover, and with a desperate attack led by Freylaf, son of Helm's sister Hild, they would take back Edoras, kill Wolf, and eventually with the help of Gondor, expel the Dunlendings and other invaders. Even though Rohan had prevailed in the end, their king was no more, and with both of his sons gone too, Freylaf then took over the kingship, and thus the third line of the kings of Rohan began. As for Helm, his body was brought back from Soothburg, which would henceforth be known as Hornburg, and the gorge in which it lay became known as Helm's Deep. They laid him to rest in the ninth and final mound of the second line of the kings of Rohan. It is said that ever after, the white Silmbelmine grew there most thickly so that the mound seemed to be snow-clad, and while Helm would now finally rest in peace, his name would leave a lasting legacy amongst his people, and the sound of his horn and the legend echoed forever in the valley of his last stand and the hearts of the Rohirrim. Thank you everyone for listening to this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to hear more of these videos. Also, if you have any ideas on future videos, thoughts or comments you want to share, we would love to hear them in the comments below. Until next time, Namarie.